everyone, welcome to Keto Krime and Thought Crime. Today we're going back in time to take a look at one of the cases that always haunted me. This case happened when I was 21 years old. I was actually in college, and it pained me because it involved the death of a 6-year-old, and that is the infamous case of JonBenet Ramsey, which to date is unsolved. So we're going to go back, we're going to take a look at the case, and we're going to maybe put forth some theories on what we think happened. So with that being said, I'm not going to take too long here. I just want to say a quick shout out and thank you to my patrons and my channel members. You are the sunshine in my summer. And for anyone that watches, thank you. If this is your first time here, welcome. We do true crime, history, some pop culture commentary with a little bit of humor involved. We also do some keto weight loss, which, yes, I'm still losing weight. I am well under 300 pounds now. Yay. I will do an update on that. And we try to do it with humor and intellect as well. So it's a totally safe space. I don't allow any abuse in my comment section, so feel free to be honest as long as you're respectful of me and others. I am a middle-aged Southern woman with little tolerance for people being mean to each other. I'll just let you know. Also, it's pollen season here in Tennessee, and there is pollen about 1 inch thick outside, and it is affecting me. I had planned to record every day this week, but because I had sniffles and runny nose, I couldn't. I still kind of have them today, but I'm just going to power through, so please ignore the fact I may have looked like I've been punched in the face, but I am highly allergic, and it is springtime in the South. So, we haven't had any rain here lately to wash it out, which I'm happy for, because in the spring in the South, it's not just rain, it's also severe thunderstorms, so, yeah. All right, with that being said, let's jump into this case, and if you'd like, please like, comment, share, subscribe. It's my goal to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I think we can do it. As you can see, my mother-in-law has been at it again with her crafts. It's springtime, so the theme is bees, and there are bees everywhere. Here, with hives. I love it. It spruces up the office a little bit, so I really want to give a shout out to her. Thank you. And with that being said, let's jump into the case. Before we get into the case, let's talk about the phenomenon that is the junior pageant system. I really believe that this is a uniquely Southern phenomenon. I don't really hear of Midwestern girls or Western girls or Northeastern girls or boys, because believe it, they do put boys in these pageants as well. I was in a couple as a kid, and there was a boys competition too. At least way back then. My mother found out really quickly I was not a pageant child when I basically ripped my dress and everything off backstage, and she had to quickly put it back on me. So there you go. But I do believe that this is uniquely a Southern phenomenon. I don't know why. I don't know why some Southern mothers feel the need to parade their children in front of perfect strangers for their physical attributes and talent. If you've ever seen the TLC series Pageant Moms, or Dance Moms, you kind of see what goes on behind the scenes. I think lots of times it has little to do with the children wanting to be in these pageants and more to do with the mothers trying to relive a youth that they wish they had. So I know that was in my case. My mom never got to do any of that stuff, so she would put me in all this stuff. I was in photograph contests. I was in pageants. I hated every minute of it. I was not a girly girl. I wasn't that cute as a baby, so I don't understand her obsession with that, but okay. You know, I was just all fat. Nothing much has changed. So, yeah. But I don't understand the phenomenon behind this. And I think that these pageants draw the wrong types of people. I mean, I'm sure there's some very nice people that are in this pageant system that are just doing it for the love of pageantry, I guess. But I actually roomed in college with a young lady, hi Joy, that was that volunteered with the Miss Alabama pageant every year and was pretty high up in Miss America. Ended up being very high up in Miss America, and as far as the behind the scenes, and and even she was against like junior pageants, passionately against junior pageants. She said, once you reach, 16, 17, 18, and you make this decision of your own free will, such as the Miss America and the Miss USA circuit, that's fine. Go for it. But as far as children, she thought that was borderline exploitation. And so even though I know there's some very fine people in the pageant system, aka her, she was against this. She believed it borderline on exploitation, because for every 10 really nice people that are involved in the pageant system, just for whatever source of entertainment they get out of it, there's also going to be at least 1 or 2 bad people associated with it. And I think you know the word that I'm leaning toward. I can't say it because Susan doesn't like it. But I think we know what kinds of people these tend to draw, because these aren't just cutesy little Shirley Temple girls that come out and sing, Good Ship Lollipop. This is more... Let's just say that children are widely sexualized during these pageants. There's swimsuit competitions, evening gown competitions, talent competitions where they do things from batons to sexually explicit dancing. So these pageants are not for children. They are literally, I think, for mothers that want to, or grandmothers that want to relive their youth through it. And you remember I said I was in a pageant where there was a boys competition? Boys just came out in suits, and that was pretty much it. There was no talent, there was no anything, but the girls had to go through a whole lot more. So I think you can see how the whole system is kind of set up to exploit females. So I am really against the junior pageant system. I'm going to put that out there, and this is the world that little JonBenet Ramsey grew up in. And with that being said, let's take a look at her life. JonBenet Ramsey was born in 1990, August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia, to John Ramsey and his wife, Patricia Ramsey. She had an older brother named Burke that was born in 1987, as well as John Ramsey had children from a previous marriage that were grown. So there was very much a age discrepancy, not only between JonBenet and Burke and the rest of the Ramsey children, but also between John and Patsy. Patsy was definitely his second wife, and she had a pageant history as well. She won Miss West Virginia as part of the Miss America circuit at age 20 in 1977, so she was a looker, and I would suspect, even though we don't know for sure, I would suspect her mom had probably had her in the children's circuit as well. So she grew up in this pageant system, and I'm sure it was by virtue of her beauty and the types of scholarships and things that come with the Miss America system that she was able to meet John Ramsey, who was a very successful tech entrepreneur. He actually controlled controlling interests in Access Graphics, which grew out of 3 executives that left Lockheed Martin, in which he was highly, highly placed as well. He was born in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1943. He was married 3 times, including Patricia, who was his second wife. He was married to Lucinda Posh, with he had 3 children from 1966 to 1978, and then he married Patricia in 1980, and she, of course, as we know, passed away from cancer in 2006. He married another lady by the name of Jan Rousseau in 2011, and they are currently still married. He began his career in the Navy in 1966 as a member of the Engineer Corps, and then stayed in technology past that. As he was docked in Atlanta, he stayed in Atlanta, made his fortune in Atlanta, and as such was a very wealthy man. He actually moved Access Graphics from a small startup to a huge tech conglomerate that was actually sold to General Electric in 1997, so there was a lot of money there. But up until he sold to General Electric in 1997, he had moved the headquarters from Atlanta, where it was started, to Boulder, Colorado, where JonBenet died. And it was after JonBenet's death that the family felt they wanted to move back to Atlanta, where JonBenet was buried, and wanted to be close to family, so he did sell the company at that point, and they moved back to Atlanta. But now, let's talk about JonBenet. JonBenet lived on the junior pageant circuit, having won many little titles, as well as being involved in many more pageants. She was kind of a local celebrity, and then once moving to Boulder, her mother kept her in the small pageant circuit that existed in Colorado. So what they suspect is that the cause of her death was probably to do with somebody that was involved in the pageant circuit. So what we do know is that the family life of the Ramseys was no different than anyone else. They were very wealthy, so they didn't have the same types of financial struggles that perhaps most middle-class people have. But they still had struggles. I mean, there was always conflict between the older children of John Ramsey and his new family. There were, of course, conflicts over the money that way. There was conflicts over who spends holidays with who. Anytime you get into an extended family, you're going to have some sorts of problems like that. There was also strife between Burke, who was kind of quiet and more withdrawn into himself. He was highly techy like his father. He liked computers and computer games and design, so he was very much like his father, and was very withdrawn and kind of an introvert, whereas JonBenet was definitely an extrovert, bigger than life. She was kind of the little princess of the family, and there was a little bit of jealousy between Burke and JonBenet, let's just be honest. In fact, there are reports that at one time there was a fight, and Burke actually hit JonBenet across the head with a golf club or an umbrella, something strong like that, and actually caused her to have to go to get stitches and an x-ray, although she was fine. But we have to point out that, yes, there was strife. Now, do I think that Burke is evil because he did that? No. I probably punched my little half-brother several times when he got up in my face as a kid. I was usually a very nice, quiet kid, kind of like Burke, kind of in myself, into my books, into my computer, into my little, Apple computer there. But when people got up in my face, I retaliated. And, there were fights. But would I want him dead? No, absolutely not. So there was strife in the family. But now let's fast forward to December 25th, Christmas Day, 1996, which unfortunately was the last day of JonBenet's life. They spent Christmas Day at the home they had Christmas morning there at their home. And then they had a Christmas afternoon party gathering with friends, the White family, Fleet White and his family, where they spent the majority of the day having fun, and then they came back later that night on Christmas night. According to John and Patsy, both Burke and JonBenet were asleep in the back seat of the car. When they pulled back up to the house, they were taken in, put immediately to bed, and then Patsy went about making final touches around the house for packing and things like that, because they were leaving for an extended vacation the next day where they would be gone past New Year's, and John, who was a pilot, was going to fly them to their destination. She was up fairly late, and both her and John ended up going to bed way past midnight into December 26th. So they woke up very early. Patsy did about 4:30, 5 a.m. She woke John up. John immediately got up and went to go take a shower as they were, about to pack up the car and go to the airport to take off for their vacation. And Patsy started walking down the steps towards the kitchen to get coffee on and make her morning preparations. When she walked down the stairs, she found on the second and third step, a multi-page note. And it was handwritten, and it had some pretty disturbing things. She picked it up immediately and started to read it, and this is exactly what it said. Mr. Ramsey, addressing John, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want to see her in 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on a delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange early delivery of your money and hence an earlier delivery / out pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you to not provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand about a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand 100% chance of getting your daughter back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. All right. First of all, it was found later that that note was written on normal, like, desktop stationery, kind of a half, the size stationery, it's kind of a quarter of a normal, like, printer page of paper, a notebook page of paper. It was written on at least 2 to 3 of those size papers, and it was written off of stationery present in the Ramsey house. So whoever wrote this wrote it while they were in the house. They also used pen. It was also found to have ink from pens that were already in the house. So very unusual that a foreign faction that wants to kidnap a rich American's daughter would come in, do the deed, and then stay behind long enough to write out a complete ransom note and leave it on the bottom of the stairs. It seems that somebody like this would be more prepared and would have a note already written and ready to go when they entered the house. Of course, Patsy freaks out. She immediately runs up the stairs to check on, first she checks Burke's rooms, found him sound asleep in his bed. Then she goes to JonBenet's room. She's gone. She immediately goes to the bathroom and alerts John, and they call the cops right away. There's no discussing it. In fact, there's a famous recording out there of them on the line with 911, and I will put it here.
515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left, and our daughter's gone. Yes. How old is your daughter? She's 6 years old. She's blonde. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says SBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out and she's right here. Oh my God, please. Okay, well, there's somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath. Please, okay? Hurry. Patsy.
And if you listen very carefully, supposedly you can hear 3 voices if they're on the Ramsey side. John, Patsy, and possibly somebody that sounds like Burke, even though by all accounts Burke was still asleep upstairs when all this was going on. Also, Patsy comments that she found a bowl of half-eaten pineapple chunks on the table. She does not recall having fixed either Burke or JonBenet a snack before they went to bed, that they were both pretty much out and they just put them to bed. So still, that's kind of a loose set of circumstances there. Well, they immediately call the police, and within minutes of this 911 call, police are swarming their Boulder, Colorado home. Also in the note, they asked for a very specific amount, $118,000, which coincidentally was the exact amount of the 1996 Christmas bonus that John had received as president of Access Graphics. So immediately, police were cued off to the possibility that someone had to know the exact amount of the bonus he received. So one of the first things they turned to is asking John if he had any recently fired employees, anybody at the company that just absolutely did not like him, that might know not only the amount of his bonus, but might want to extort that money from him. So that was their first inclination. The police also called in the FBI and the CBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, who immediately started an investigation, immediately called in the validity of the note, the fact, like I said, it was on 3 pages of quarter-page size stationery, written, obviously, in the house. It was far too long to actually be a ransom note that anybody involved in international terrorism would have ever written. And the fact that it was so specific. So there was a lot of weirdness here. And the way that the actual crime scene was handled. When the police got there, they immediately searched the home. They went up. They actually woke Burke up when they went into his room, asking him if he had seen anything. He didn't. And they didn't cordon off the house. In fact, 𝗜𝗁𝗁, remember the Ramsey's friends that they had been at a Christmas party at their house the day before? Come on over. Come on over. Let's sit in the house. So they had all these people that should never have been in a crime scene wandering around the house, messing with evidence, and the police were just allowing it to happen. Again, we talked about shoddy police work, and I, as a supporter of the police, coming from a family of both military and police officers, I have to say I have a huge respect for law enforcement. But I didn't realize just how much they botch things on a daily basis, at least in some of these crimes. I know no one's perfect, but come on, I would have known that people not even remotely connected to the crime or the family should have been in that house. Come on, that's just absolute evidence tampering, DNA everywhere, contamination of the crime scene everywhere. So the 911 call came in at about 5:52 a.m. on December 26th. By 1 p.m., they still had not found any signs of forceful entry or anything that would suggest a kidnapper got in and got out. So the consensus was that no one knew Jack. That was the consensus. And it was about 1 p.m. in the afternoon, Mountain Standard Time, that one of the detectives by the name of Arndt asked John Ramsey and his friend 𝗜𝗁𝗁, remember the White family's just hanging out there, having a hangout, to search the house to see if anything's amiss. What? You're a detective. You're a detective. Why aren't you searching the house to see if anything's amiss? You're asking the father, who in any disappearance of a child or any disappearance of a family member, the immediate family member is always a person of interest, always suspect number one. You're asking John Ramsey, the father, and his good best friend, to search the house to see if, what are you drinking? What is the Boulder Police Department drinking? So they asked them to search the house. And they go down immediately to the basement, area that had already been searched by Officer French, the first officer on the scene. The only part he did not enter was a small room where it was latched and he couldn't get into it. Well, guess what John and Fleet do? They immediately go to that door, unlatch it, and inside is JonBenet's body, of course. Her mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was found around her wrists and neck, and a noose of sorts was around her neck, and she was covered by a white blanket. John picked up his daughter's body, which, that's another mistake. You never ever move a body. It needs to be looked at exactly where it is, and brought her upstairs and laid her in the entrance of the front door, which has all this DNA on it that shouldn't be there, and laid her body there. And of course, Patsy flips out, everybody flips out, and the cops flip out. So now we have a body. It's obviously no longer a kidnapping, but a murder. And of course, now the police suspect that maybe somebody in the family did it. Duh! And they begin asking for handwriting samples, blood and hair samples, all sorts of things from all of the Ramseys. They immediately, finally clear the house, and they start their investigation. They interviewed both Patsy, John, and Burke, and kind of began to try to piece together what had happened. The autopsy revealed that she had died of strangulation and a skull fracture. Not sure which was actually the death blow, but they suspect that she was already passed out from lack of oxygen and then had been hit with a blunt object. After that, they did investigate to see if there had been sexual assault there, but they found no evidence of that. There was no bodily fluids present, although the pathologist laid forth the theory that maybe whoever did this had cleaned the area, which would have wiped it pretty clean. The nylon cord, the noose, the garrote, as it's actually called, had been fashioned using the handle of a broken paintbrush. That was also part in that room that the Ramseys had. It was made from things that were present in the house. So everything used on this child was made from within the house. They also found some undigested fruit or vegetable matter in JonBenet's stomach, which might lead them to believe that she had been the one eating the pineapple that they found out on the counter. So there's that theory. But basically, the strangest thing was that everything that was used to murder this child was found within the house, from the ransom note to the garrote to the nylon cords. Everything was present in that house. So whoever did this, if he had come from the outside, would have to have come in, grabbed JonBenet, kept her from crying out at all, found these articles to do the deed, done the deed, and then wrote the ransom note, all without waking up anyone in the house. That dog don't hunt, y'all. It just don't hunt. It's never hunted. The bowl that the pineapple was in was dusted for fingerprints. Both Burt Ramsey's and JonBenet Ramsey's fingerprints were found on it, evidently. The Ramseys have always contended that Burke slept through the night and could not have possibly been awake. In December of 2003, they found enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenet's underwear to establish sort of a DNA profile of who may have done this. Now you got to remember, when John and Fleet brought JonBenet up the steps from the basement, they laid her in the entryway of the front door, where everybody that was in the house had DNA that had obviously fallen off in that area. So she was covered with a mixture of DNA. But however, from her underwear that she had on, they were able to get enough blood to put forth some sort of DNA profile, and this is what they found. That it was a male DNA. Sorry, cat. But it was a male DNA, and they excluded every member of the Ramsey household, including John, Burke, and Patsy, from it. So they do believe that it was an unknown male that entered through the house and somehow did this, and there have been several theories put forth, but today, of course, as we all know, it remains unsolved to this day. But these are some of the more popular theories that have been put forth. That it was done by a member of the family is probably the most prevalent. Now, the Ramseys have since been fully exonerated due to statute of limitations and the fact that the DNA closest to JonBenet was found to be an unknown male. But what you have to remember, even though that was in her underpants, she was still laid in a very high traffic area where DNA of anyone that had ever been in the house would have been. So to me, that's not enough proof to fully exonerate everybody in the family. So there are two major theories where the family comes into play. One is that Burt Ramsey may have done it. And it is because perhaps jealousy had overboiled at some point. Maybe they suspect, people that put forth this theory, and this was a theory put forth by CBS in a special in which the Ramseys did turn around and sue them for, saying that Burke had been downstairs having a snack of pineapple, which he really loved, and JonBenet heard him and went down and tried to take the pineapple from him, and Burke snapped and killed her. In which case he woke up his parents. The parents, not wanting to lose both their children, basically wrote the ransom note, put the body in the basement, wrote and called the police. In fact, people or proponents of this say that because of the 911 call, you can sort of hear a voice on the other side with the Ramseys who said something along the lines, who sounded like a young boy saying, well, what did you find? And then you hear Patsy saying, I don't want to speak to you right now. So these are proponents of that theory. The other theory is that because JonBenet, even though she was the apple of Patsy's eye, had a bedwetting problem, and Patsy was not one to accept flaws in her children, and had been known to spank JonBenet for wetting the bed, and that perhaps she had wet the bed during the night, and Patsy was already tired trying to get to bed after packing for the family, and Patsy snapped and killed her daughter. That is the second theory in reference to the family, and they again tried to cover that up. There's never been a theory put forth that John Ramsey did this to his daughter, but those are the two major, that it was either Burke or Patsy herself. And then the other theories are those of an outside intruder, and that the intruder probably entered through a basement grate window that was never locked, and it was just easily removed. It was kind of a little embankment that you could roll in, pop out the grate, and you could gain access to the house. So the most common theory is that the person entered there and exited there and then put the grate back. And the two most probable suspects is a neighbor by the name of Bill McReynolds, who played Santa Claus, and a former housekeeper by the name of Linda Hoffman-Pugh, as well as another man named Michael Helgath. Now, Helgath actually committed suicide shortly after JonBenet's death, but his DNA was never matched. Now, in the case of McReynolds and Helgath, they were both... McReynolds was never a known P word, but he did have an unusual attachment to JonBenet, and even said something that JonBenet had come to him in a vision after her death and said she was all right. Just weirdness. So he had an unusual attachment to JonBenet, so he was suspect. And then Helgath was also a known P that was in the area, so he was pretty obvious. Now, the housekeeper, or former housekeeper, had a labor dispute with the Ramseys and was fired under less than good circumstances, so they feel that maybe she did it in revenge against her former employers. However, no DNA linking them to the home has ever been found, or to the crime has ever been found. But those are the theories. People that put forth this talk about the fact that probably whoever did it used a stun gun on young JonBenet and was able to knock her out, therefore giving them the time to do everything that they did in the house. Still, the lack of any substantial DNA is telling. And the fact that no one else would have woken up with all that going on is telling. Now, to their credit, the people that are proponents of the outside intruder will say that in the time period between November of 1996, January of 1997, there were approximately 100 burglaries in the Ramsey's neighborhood. There were also 38 registered sex offenders also residing in the immediate area. So there was plenty of people that I guess it could have possibly been, and there was plenty of ways for people that knew how to get into houses for this to happen. But none of this has ever been proven. All of this is conjecture. All of this is just theories, because the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know what happened to this poor child. There have also been several false confessions of people that are taking credit for the murder, which have been proven not to be the case. And then on top of it is the fact that the Ramseys used their PR firm and their attorney, Lynn Wood, who, if you know Lynn Wood, he is the one that is representing 𝗂𝗲𝗃𝗁 right now. He has represented many high-profile defendants in his time. He basically would sue anybody that even brought up the fact that it could have been Patsy or John, and then later on 𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏 did a famous interview with Dr. Phil in 2015, 2016, as well as CBS released their own expose, which pointed all fingers at 𝗏𝗏. That was the last lawsuit connected with this. Of course, Patsy passed away in 2006. That lawsuit against CBS was settled to the satisfaction of both parties, according to Ramsey attorneys. Now, in the interview with Dr. Phil, 𝗏𝗏 came off as kind of shifty a little bit, but even Dr. Phil went back and explained that he's obviously on the spectrum and he works from his home in Atlanta, Georgia, in a computer-related field. He lives a very isolated life. He's very socially awkward. So that's why he was coming off as he was. It was just a natural way that he would act.
I can tell you I was very emotional at the Fernies, and I would just randomly cry out of nowhere. I guess it's a combination of sitting in there with this weird guy that I'd never talked to before and asking me all these personal questions. It's a combination of that and just kind of, at some point you have to move on, and I'm not saying I moved on then. It might have been kind of the other end, because I didn't really get it, but you got to stop crying at some point, I guess.
This young man had a very unusual upbringing, because at the very beginning, someone said to the Ramseys, the Boulder Police Department are targeting you. And so they lawyered up very early on, whereas normally you would think parents would be saying, look, exclude me, do anything you need to, DNA, polygraphs, interviews, blood tests, whatever, to exclude me so you can go after the real killers. But instead they lawyered up and started taking a defensive posture, because the Boulder police were singularly looking at them. And as a result, a siege mentality set in, and 𝗏𝗏 was held back from the media, held back from the police. And so for 9 years, until he reached his age of majority, they held him back. And then at that point, he decided to go off the grid. And he is socially uncomfortable. He works as a computer analyst now, but he doesn't go in. He works remotely. So he still is a very isolated guy.
Do you ask?
Because Dr. Phil spent a lot of time with him. I mean, say what you want about Dr. Phil, I think he's he's qualified to make that call. And that's where we are today. No real evidence about what happened. And anybody that puts forth any evidence fears lawsuits. So, Tracy, what do you think happened? I have my opinions. I don't think it was 𝗏𝗏. I don't think it was an outside intruder. And I don't think that I don't think the person associated with this crime is alive. So if that narrows it down, I think that narrows it down. I have done enough true crime episodes on, and this is just my opinion, this is a gut feeling based on the evidence that I've seen. I've done enough research on matricide, 𝗜𝗂𝘁𝗲, family annihilators, that I kind of recognize the signs of that, and that's what I see all over this case. So put 2 and 2 together, that the person that I suspect is no longer with us. But again, no way to prove that. JonBenet's been in her grave now, over 20 years? So we may never know officially who murdered this child. But I think they're already in their grave as well. If that clues you in. Anyway, let me know what you think about this case. Who do you suspect it is, and why? Let me know down below. And with that being said, I'll be back really soon with another true crime case. And until next time, Keto and Krime.